Hello, folks. Welcome to this week's episode of Log Talk with Pert in Your Outdoors. This is your host, Billy, and this week I've got an episode coming to you with my good friend, college buddy, and now hunting buddy from across the country, Rob Herrmann. Rob is a very talented photographer, along with many things, and wanted to get him on here just to catch up and chat with him. I haven't talked to him really since deer season. I talked to him right after he shot his buck here in New York. Rob is a resident of Denver, Colorado now, and he is kind of a good man to have in your pocket when it comes to traveling out to Colorado. It's always good to have friends in places where you're going to go, and Rob was a huge help a couple of years ago when Danny Boy had his medical emergency. Rob put Brian and I up for a night, let us shower, use his house as if it was our own. So Rob's a good dude, and if you have not heard of him or don't follow him on Instagram, certainly recommend it. Rob Herrmann Photog is his, or maybe it's just Rob Herrmann. Just search Rob Herrmann. It's Herrmann. That's what you need to know. Search Rob Herrmann. I'm sure he'll come right up. Does a lot of great stuff, outdoor photographer, and much, much more. So check him out. Enjoy the conversation with Rob. We kind of just BS about what's up and how his season went and kind of walk through the timeline of all that. And should be good. You should like it. I hope you do. So I want to hit on a couple things we got coming up. We are excited to do our live Q&A podcast this Thursday night, the 11th of February at 8:30 p.m. We're going to be doing a live video chat with John Teeter of Whitetail Landscapes and Ben Williams of Old Tin Cup Property Management. And those two guys, if you haven't heard of them, I assume if you listen to this podcast, you've heard of them. We've had both of them on the podcast. Both are local New York-based property management gurus, and both bring a little bit of their own style and ideas to that process. So they thought it'd be cool to get a Q&A together with those guys right now. A lot of people who own property, as soon as deer season ends, you're already thinking about what sort of stuff you can do to improve your property. And we are in the middle of some projects ourselves, both on the Harvey side and with my in-laws side. So it's definitely something I know that my family will take a lot of enjoyment and listen to these guys talk about what they recommend this time of year. And this is meant to be a Q&A, so I will put up a couple posts on social media, try to get a couple of questions ahead of time, but we definitely want interaction with people that are tuned in. So feel free to come and bring your questions 8:30 Thursday night. And if you cannot tune in, we understand. Everybody's busy, as I understand wholeheartedly there. So we will be recording this, and we will post the video up, of course, on our Facebook page. We'll probably post it up on YouTube, as well as create a podcast out of it. So this will be available to listen to after the fact, but would love to have you tune in live action on Thursday night. So dovetailing off of that, we are excited to be doing a little bit of a shed hunting contest here. We're kind of still in the formation phases of this, but my goal is to have this all wrapped up and ready to put out to the public the end of this week. Probably would like to drop it on the podcast Thursday evening. We are going to be doing we're going to call it the first annual, and I've been corrected by Big Jim saying you can't call it the first annual because it hasn't become an annual because we haven't done it yet. But if you follow Pert in Your Outdoors, you understand we try not to take ourselves too seriously, and I think it fits perfect. So it's the first annual Shed Fest by Pert in Your Outdoors, and the whole idea of this is we're going to have a few different categories. I don't want to give into what the prizes are going to be yet, but basically it's just this is the idea of this is actually just to benefit, get people out there, and ultimately to benefit National Deer Association. So working with Mike Edwards, talked to him after we did the podcast a couple weeks ago and talked to him about the idea, and he loved it. So what we're going to do is it's going to be a $30 entry through our website. You'll buy an entry, and with that, you will get a 1-year membership to the National Deer Association. So all the benefits that we talked about in last week's episode, you will benefit from a $15. So that's a nice little discount there for you. So you'll get a 1-year membership, and then you'll also get a one-time limited edition first annual Shed Fest T-shirt that Russ Morgan over at Whitetail Company helped us out to design. Pretty incredible what he did. We sent him over some pictures of Frankenbeans and his horns and asked him to get creative and make something up for us. So you will see when we post it up what he did, but it's really awesome, and Russ is a pretty talented individual. So Russ is supporting us with this. So Whitetail Company, his business, lifestyle brand, he is supporting us with this, as he has in just about every contest we've done. So we're greatly appreciative of that. So if you haven't checked those guys out, head on over. Local Western New York business here that does hats, shirts, all kinds of lifestyle type apparel is what Russ is up to with that business. So check him out. Give him some support. We also will have John Teeter is tossing in a pretty sweet prize. He does a little product testing on the side, so he's got something he would like to donate for the contest. So we're going to have a sweet prize from John, and we appreciate that. And then lastly, we'll have some sort of trail cam combo, something along those lines from Pursuit Outdoors, which some of you may know Brad Sisson, but that's his website where he sells trail cams, does reviews, products, stuff like that. So check out pursuitoutdoors.com to see what he's got going on over there. But really appreciate everyone's support. It's pretty cool. The community is growing locally here, and loving every minute of it. So keep your eyes peeled for that contest. Tune in Thursday night. And I know the Bills aren't playing tonight, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to say go Bills, because that's just what we do. In the Super Bowl, it's weird. Wife and I were talking about it. It's I've never had this feeling for a Super Bowl. And I think the reason that is that we were so jacked up for the game a few weeks ago. Once it was over, just felt like the season was over, and haven't ever really been here. And this is a weird feeling. So going to sit back, enjoy the game, eat some food with the wife and kids, and just hope for some good competitive football. So there's your sports break for this week. I appreciate it. And, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. I can hear the kids screaming upstairs. I'm going to go up there and support my wife. And hope you enjoyed the discussion with Rob, and we'll see you guys on the live broadcast Thursday night. Keep fading them.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your
Yeah.
name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the ghost, and
275
what's
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah. He's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villagers.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors.
Is it
I can hear
staticky or clear?
It's what you get with a Zoom call.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well,
Is this better?
Say something.
Say something. Is this better through the laptop, or better via headphone?
Yeah, it's pretty. Let's try one more time.
Okay, let's go.
Put it in there.
We're gonna go
one more time. Slide it in. Okay. How are we doing?
I mean, it sounds a little bit different, but it's fine. If you're more comfortable with the headset, then just leave the headset.
Cool. If it's equally crappy, I'll opt to the headset.
Yeah. I sound pretty shitty. It's so much different going through the computer than it is going through the actual recorder. But I know there's probably a better way to do this, but I think about it all week long, and then it's time to do a podcast, and it's like, Yep. Haven't really spent any time trying to figure
You
this
do
out.
what you know. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm ready to feed them for you.
What's up?
With you, Bill. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Not good stuff.
what are you feeding her?
I got a Tecate Edition Retro. Ooh. I'm in Texas, so it's got to be Mexican beer.
Oh, I was like, yeah, I don't recognize the paintings on your wall and everything else.
Oh, yeah, this is my parents, one of their guest rooms, so it's got like parrots and
Nice.
wacky shit on the wall because my mom likes that stuff.
It's got Trumansburg spirit, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, what's up, Bill?
How you been, buddy? No, I asked you first.
Yeah, I've been good, man.
This is my show. I ask the questions, all right?
Fair enough. Yeah, I've been good. I've been keeping busy, getting out and about. Summer and I finally got down to Texas because I've been trying to see my parents and family for a while, and due to the state of the world, things have not worked out, but we're here now.
Nice. You guys are down near what, Lake Travis or something, or?
Yeah, they're right on Lake Travis, so it's about 30-40 minutes outside of Austin. But my parents' place is really nice because it's right above the lake. It's on a quiet little cove. It's long driveway, and their road is like 5 or 6 little redneck cabins basically. So
Nice.
yes, sir.
How far of a drive down there is that for you guys from Denver?
We actually did fly.
You did.
So drive time, it's like 16 hours.
Is it really?
Yeah, Texas is huge,
shit.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
God bless Texas.
definitely a commitment. So that was why we decided to finally fly. And like right now, especially this Southwest flight for Summer and I both to fly down, our return flights were $195 for both of us.
Nice. It's awesome. Yeah, it's a good
Uh-oh.
time to fly if you
Froze.
want to fly. Uh-oh. Who froze?
Uh-oh.
Is that me or you?
Uh-oh.
We're back.
I think it might have been me.
Turn
It says
my...
I'm unstable, but that's nothing new.
No.
Try to get rid of some of this extra crap. So are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording, man. This is what we do.
Oh boy. Well, how you been, Bill? You got to me. How you been?
I'm good. It's I'll tell you right now, dad life with 2 kids it's freaking no joke.
Yeah,
And,
exponentially more than one kid.
It is way harder with 2 than it is with 1.
Really?
And even to the fact where, like the other night, Billy went to bed at 5 o'clock because he didn't take. Actually, it was the night that I posted that video of him throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah,
he went to bed very shortly after that, and it was just Sarah, Kate, and I for like the whole night, and it was like, this is easy. It's like one kid is super easy.
You get rid of one, and the other one seems a lot cooler, huh?
Yeah, exactly. No, everything's good. It's finally, like, work life is starting to speed back up. It's been real out of pattern as far as work wise, because being
Sure.
that I deal with school districts, they've been completely upside down throughout this last 12 months. So starting to feel some semblance of normalcy coming back, which is kind of nice. And that flows all the way through life. You know what I mean? When work is jacked up, and it's one thing when work's busy, because when it's busy, you know to expect it's busy. But then when it's not busy, when it's supposed to be, and you're like bouncing around looking for, I'm a sales guy, so I need things to be busy for a period of time anyway. So
For sure.
it's firing up now, which is good. And hopefully things will keep going in the right direction as they appear to be. And got a bunch of family members that are getting vaccinated. So that's good. My wife's fully vaccinated. My brother's got his first shot. My sister-in-law's got her first shot.
Cool.
My parents have got their first shot.
Well, that's quick. Yeah, my parents have theirs scheduled now, I think, for a couple weeks out. But I'm surprised you guys got it that quick.
Yeah, well, the way they're doing it here in New York is they're, they started with medical, frontline workers, and then the next line of people was like first responders and school school related people. So both my parents work in the school system, as well as my
Gotcha.
sister-in-law. And then Jimbo is a contractor, quote unquote contractor of a school district, because he goes in and works at schools. So he was able to, with that kind of little specification, he was able to go and get himself in for the first round. So I'm really excited. I'm not planning on getting the vaccine anytime soon. I don't feel as that I need to. I think there's a lot of people that need it before me, so that's kind of my stance on the whole thing. But
Yeah.
but I'm just excited to try to get back to seeing family and doing family get-togethers and socializing with our friends. I mean, we haven't done dick with our friends. I mean, thank God for hunting season, because that at least gave me some social experimentation with my friends. But man, oh man, like this has been a freaking drag.
Yeah, gotta get back to some social order here.
Yeah. How is this? It seems like you've been staying pretty darn busy. I mean, granted, what you're doing for a living is mainly outside, but how has this last year been for you business wise? It was probably about a year ago we had you on the first time. How's the last year been being freelance and on your own?
Yeah, it's actually been surprisingly good. The first couple months of COVID, basically all the work we had lined up pretty much fell apart because most of the companies, we're freelancers also. So, most of the companies, even though we were freelancing, basically didn't want to have their name on us. Say we were to go out and get a whole small town sick or something, they didn't want it to be associated. Excuse me. So the first 2 months or so were real slow. And then thankfully, because our concentration is more on the outdoor industry, as the outdoor industry kind of blew up with COVID, everybody realized all of a sudden, like, okay, we haven't done anything in 2 months. Our sales are going through the roof. People are going outside and getting outside. And so it was kind of like the holy shit factor. We got to get some content and, get some good stuff put together. So those first 2 months were pretty much dark and quiet. And after that, it pretty much went crazy. So it's been good. We're kind of fizzled out to more of a regular schedule now. Usually I'd say January was definitely our slowest month, which was kind of nice because we were super busy for a while. So, it turned into January, February is a lot of pitching clients for this year and, trying to find the companies that we're working with and hoping to work with. And so overall, it's been good. Like you said, most of our stuff is outside also. So that's one thing that we're lucky with is, we're still able to be working. And most of these shoots and stuff, I'm not super concerned about because most of them, we're outdoors. I can improvise and shoot with longer lenses and whatnot. But, most of it's not like I'm shooting portraits in an enclosed space, right up in people's faces. It's a little less intimate than that. So, we're still able to get outside and we've been fortunate that at least the state of Colorado has left most public lands and most of the outdoor activities available to people. So it's been good in that sense. It's been fun. And, it's definitely a little bit of a roller coaster of a year, but we're ready to get back to a little bit more of a normal schedule. And, like I said, we were trying to get down here for a while and it feels really good to see family. And, my parents will have their first shots in a couple of weeks, but we've been staying healthy. I haven't been tested, but Summer's been tested several times. So as far as we know, we haven't had it in our household. And we've kept it clean through this far in COVID.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm excited. I heard they got a new rectal exam coming out and I'm pretty fired up about that.
I heard Snyder's gotten 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a meme on somewhere the other day and Sarah being the medical professional she is, she would have thought it was pretty funny, but I was dying. It was like a cartoon of Fauci, and he's like, yeah, we're coming out with this new rectal exam and all you got to do is take your finger and implant it as far as you possibly can and put it underneath your nose. And if you smell, then you don't have COVID.
She wasn't into it.
No, she's like, that's disgusting. I'm like, bullshit. I'm like, you're going to go to work and tell all your coworkers about that. And you're all going to freaking love it. So,
yeah, I saw Snyder did a Q&A the other day and Someone said, "Is it true that you've opted to the rectal exams?" And he said, "By choice, twice."
Oh Jesus. Yeah.
That guy cracks me up.
I love the humor, man. I love it. So, I mean, for anybody that doesn't, I mean, we just started talking here, but, you know, for anybody who doesn't know who you are and what you do, I guess, kind of introduce yourself. You know,
Yeah.
who
Okay.
you are,
Well,
where people can find you, what your work is.
Sure. I am Rob Herrmann. I am primarily an outdoor photographer, so I do a lot of work in outdoor products. Well, not little, big mix of things. But these days, kind of my specialty is lifestyle and outdoor product work. We work with a variety of companies. So I freelance, but I work with a couple of different companies. So I work with one called Bearded Bros Media, who's a good buddy of mine, Corbin. He's been in the game for a while, and he's gotten more and more into the video side of things. So I've been able to take over some of his workload on the photo side of things, which is nice. So that's a cool partnership. You know, I really like working with other companies also, because it's kind of fun to have some camaraderie and stuff. You know, working for yourself is good and great, but you know, that's one of the things that you miss, I guess, is kind of being around other people and getting the camaraderie and the fun. And you know, as a creator also, it's a lot easier to get creative when you have a couple different eyes and a couple different minds put together. So
Yeah.
it's a little mix of stuff there. And then I also am part owner in a fly fishing company called Yakoda Supply. That's Yakoda, which I get that question.
Yeah.
Yakoda. So we are primarily in the fly fishing industry, but we make simple outdoor products that you know, you could apply across most of the outdoor space. We try to not over engineer stuff. We're making stuff that, you know, everyday outdoorsmen can afford, and you know, not everybody needs a $500 submersible pack at all times. You know, we make stuff that's basic out of good materials. We try to make everything in the USA. We have one product that is not, but we've tried everything we can to get it. And apparently people don't make tins in the United States because it's not a profitable business. So aside from that, everything else is made in the US. And, you know, that's kind of a fun side project for all of us right now. But as we continue to scale and grow, I'm pretty hopeful that that'll be my full-time gig within probably before too long here. So
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Nice, man. Yeah, and it seems like a lot of the work you're doing, I mean, it's just a riot following along with you on Instagram, because you guys are doing some really awesome, I mean, the shoots and the landscapes you're in, you know, the fishing, and, you know, you're doing one the other day with the girls for vodka or something. I was like, this is fantastic. I was like, I'm going to quit my job and go to Colorado. This is great.
Yeah, you know, nobody pays attention until you put a bunch of girls in sports bras out in the
Yeah.
cold, and then everybody's like,
vodka. Yeah, I'm here for the vodka.
I want to reconnect with Rob.
Right. Hey, why don't we do a podcast, buddy? Why don't we?
Yeah, I couldn't get you on the podcast till you saw that post, Bill.
Yeah, well, you know, it's the way of the world now, man.
Yep.
But yeah, it seems like it's like you've been doing a ton of stuff with the fishing side, and that was kind of, you're in a little bit out there on the photography side, it seemed. But you know, it's cool to see you running. It's not like from afar watching, it hasn't changed that much for you. I'm seeing you running with a lot of the same characters, you know, doing the photography and things. So it's cool to see that. And I'm sure for you, it's been probably 3-4 years you've been going fishing with that trout and tequila guy and doing stuff with Bearded Bros. Like, it's just cool to see that consistency coming from you.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. And, you know, that's one thing that obviously you kind of live and you learn as you go. You know, fly fishing is a big part of my concentration, but the fly fishing industry traditionally, there's not that much money there because, you know, technically it seems like a big industry, but it's not. You know, it's a very niche thing. It's a small thing. So it's funny to see, because a lot of my work has gone from where I thought it would be in the fly fishing industry, and now it's a lot of brands work with us partially because we have that concentration. And, you know, even if they're not in the fly fishing industry, you know, we're getting gigs with automobile companies and, companies that are making products that are somewhat complementary. And, they like that lifestyle. So that's a lot of it is we're fortunate to be able to use kind of the lifestyles we've established to then create content around that. So, most of my work is not necessarily, the bills aren't being paid by fly fishing companies, but they're, we're getting assistance from other companies because we are big fly fishermen and, hunting and just little things that you can kind of pull into another company's niche and make it your own. So, it's been really cool and it's a lot of fun. And like you said, we get outside a lot. We are fortunate to have beautiful public lands to enjoy and be able to work with and a good variety of people in Colorado. Also, that's one thing that I'm really fortunate with is, Denver is not only a great place to be personally, but there's a lot of people that feel that way also. So, we have access to some incredible outdoorsmen and, people that are here for a reason and are really good at what they do. And, we've created kind of a cool little community and hoping to continue to build that community because it's, it's beneficial to everybody to be able to kind of collaborate on projects and, use each other for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah. Is like I just thought of this question. I mean, it seems from afar, and we had basically when you moved out there was when I started vacationing out there, right? Was that about 2012-ish? 13?
Yeah, that was your first hunt out here. I had been here for about 2 months.
Oh, so I guess I've been going out there because I started going out there. Sarah and I went out January of 2012 to see Donnie because that's when Donnie moved out there. So yeah, you had just moved out there when we went out there for our first hunt in 2017. But how have you? I guess my question is like, how have you seen it change out there? Because I know since 2012, seeing not just Denver but all the way up in the mountains, how much it's changed in Colorado. And as far as, and then on the other side of that, like, does it, even though it seems like it's grown, does it seem like it's still a pretty small community as far as, the people that you're running with and making connections within that kind of outdoor space? It's a lot of the same people know each other and small community feel still.
Yeah, it definitely still has that, kind of tight knit community feel. A lot of it might be because a lot of the activities that we're into are kind of those smaller little niches, but at the same time, it's obviously our population is blowing up, but we haven't been terribly affected per se. I guess there's definitely more pressure. You guys have seen it firsthand, even probably in the couple of years that you've been coming out. There are more and more people at the trailheads and out hunting and getting out, and especially I think COVID also, it'll be interesting to see how this year is affected because with COVID, it seems like everybody and their mother has gotten into fly fishing and bow hunting and, not necessarily just bow hunting, but, people are starting to realize like, maybe these real life skills are something that I should probably have just in case the world does decide to end and I need to fend for myself.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't say that it's total night and day, but definitely there's more and more pressure. I'm not sure exactly how long it'll take to really feel the effects of that, but most of the spots that I've gotten out hunting with some of the crowd like Nick and those guys who we met up in the backcountry, their little honey holes are definitely getting encroached on a little bit more, and a lot of it is from the internet, from different companies kind of, I would say, creating educational resources for people, but those educational resources in part, will start to expose places and, give people better ideas of how to access those hard to find places that used to traditionally be probably all locals, so.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that. And for me also, people see me and it's like, I can't be a judge on that aspect either. Cause obviously I'm a New Yorker. I'm from upstate New York. I've only been here for under 5 years now. And, my big claim to it is I might not be from Colorado, but I probably do Colorado better than you do. And, I feel like it's everybody's public lands. Everybody has access to it. And as long as you're honoring the lands and taking good care of them, and respecting everything that is involved out there. I think that's the big part of it. So
Yeah. I think that's something that right now there was definitely a COVID effect last year with a ton of new people getting into the outdoors in every way. And a lot of those people did not grow up around it. They weren't raised around it. So maybe they don't necessarily know what the right things are and the wrong things are to do. And, like I've harped on it on here, but, just talking through it, it's like you see somebody doing something wrong or leaving a piece of garbage somewhere. I mean, some people just don't know. It's like if you're brand new to hunting or if you're brand new to hiking or fishing or camping, whatever, you just may have no idea what the etiquette is for riding a mountain bike and staying on the trail or doing this or that. So I think we're in for some growing pains in some areas, with those sorts of challenges. But, if the right people are talking and the right people are trying to guide, folks in doing the right things, the more the merrier. In a lot of ways. I mean, you say that until you come over the ridge and there's somebody in your spot, but it's
yeah,
you still have like I kind of was having this discussion with a couple of guys the other day that I did a podcast with that for me it's like more of a long game. Somebody can come in and find my spot or they can get into a far back bowl that you had to yourself, but are they going to keep going there, or is it just going to be a one-time deal? They scratch that itch and they're not coming back, so those spots may not be ruined forever. If people keep posting videos and pictures of obvious landmarks of where you are, like that's the thing with especially hunting in the mountains, it's really easy to identify where people are. Like if
yeah,
you
definitely.
have an idea about terrain, topography, different geographic features, like you can look at a picture of somebody and be like, I'm pretty sure I know where that landscape is.
Yep,
And if
absolutely.
you are paying attention to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's, I guess, more so on the fishing side, but like pretty much at this point, I can see a fish in a photo and just the fish, and I can tell you what water it came out of,
Really?
and so that's a little more specific. Obviously you're not going to do that with animals, but like you said, you see a notable landmark, and sure, you can pick it out pretty well. But like you said, I think a lot of it is consistency. Most of those people, I would say a large amount of people that get into bow hunting don't last long because they do it for a couple of years. They realize how much time and dedication it takes, and they realize that it's not as easy as going out and shooting an animal. It's going out and harder and shooting an animal maybe.
Yeah.
And so I think it'll fluctuate. It'll go up and down. I think even if the numbers of so-called bow hunters do rise, the numbers of actual successful bow hunters, or not even just bow hunters, but successful hunters is there. And it's a matter of just being the guy that's gonna stick it out and put your time in. And you've seen it your whole life. If you do that and you do it properly, things will pay off, but still doesn't necessarily guarantee anything. So
No.
most people don't like the grind. That's one of my favorite parts is the grind. Obviously, I've been in Colorado for 4 years now. I've been officially hunting elk for 3 years, kind of on a limited basis around work. But at the same time, like I haven't killed an animal in Colorado yet, aside from some ducks.
Yeah.
And that's it just goes to show you. And even Stephen Drake, who I've mentioned to you before, Stephen Drake, he's a great photographer, shoots a lot of Sitka stuff and does a lot of independent stuff. He lives up in Montana. He said it took him 7 years to kill an elk. Yeah. And nowadays he's killing like 400-inch elk every year. So,
yeah.
He's a good example. And he's told me that multiple times, like, man, don't press, because you're going to hit the tipping point where all of a sudden it goes from you're not killing anything to you're killing exactly what you want to.
Yeah.
And, it takes time and it takes dedication, and I'm willing to put that time in.
Yeah. And like the opportunity that you guys have, like a Western hunter does not have the, fields of corn and hedgerows. And, I think about that from our perspective here in New York. It's like, it's not, you can get tons of tags. You live in a Colorado or Montana, Wyoming, whatever, you get one elk tag a year. And it's not easy to kill an elk. Whereas you come back here, it's like, yeah, if you have a week, you should be able to shoot a couple deer, with whatever weapon you're using. And I think about that with guys like people from PA, like they get one buck tag, and maybe they get a doe tag if the area they hunt has doe tags. It's like they're not shooting 5-6 deer a year.
Yep.
So
yeah, no, it's a big difference. I mean, this year, I had some good opportunities at younger animals, and I was pretty particular, which I always have been with whitetail. It's a lot different story out west here, which I know a lot of hunters now that are really good elk hunters, and they say don't pass, but at the same time, this year I passed. I think I told you at one point I passed up a chip shot at a cow. This lone cow came into us, and there's a big bull not far from her, and lone cow came into us, and Nick and I were standing side by side, both on our D loops, and he said, do you want to shoot her? And I said no, and he said, I don't really want to shoot her either. And we wound up letting her walk, and it was funny. She circled back and came back and was checking us out, and it was like once she circled back, I was thinking maybe I should shoot her. But didn't wind up doing it, and that was the third day of season, and great opportunity, but I don't regret not taking that shot, because I spent almost another 2 weeks in the backcountry, and the experiences that I saw in that time, whether I shot an animal or not, were something that I couldn't pay for. It's just, and a lot of people don't quite understand that. Some, you can call me crazy, but I'm much more into the pursuit and the hunt than I am into the kill. And sure, I would like to have that meat in the freezer now, looking back at it, but if I got that shot again on day 3, I would probably pass it up again. So
yeah, totally get it. I talk so much game. Both the trips we've taken out west, I've talked a ton of shit that I'm going to shoot a cow the first opportunity I get. And yeah, it's a little different story when they're standing in front of you and you got a whole bunch of people that are with you, and you're going to change their hunt if you pull that trigger.
Yep.
It definitely changes your perspective. It's not shooting a whitetail doe that you can drive your 4-wheeler up to and throw it on. Like,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
a
I mean,
lot of
the
work.
morning that we passed on that cow, also, Nick Pinella, who you chatted with a little bit, Nick shot a cow the day before, and that morning we were actually already hiking out to go hike towards them, which they were a good probably 2-3 miles from us, because he shot a bear that morning. So we already knew we were on our way to a couple 100 pounds of meat, and if I would have rocked that cow, that would have been a total game changer as far as that weekend goes. So but it was super fun. I had some great experiences. I actually, the last 6 days of season I spent out alone, and those are times up in the backcountry that are really, really great in a lot of ways. They teach you a lot about yourself, and it's a little mix. Once again, I got some shots at some younger bulls. Had a shot at a pretty good bull that I wasn't quite ready to take. It was kind of a steep downhill and a little bit of a longer shot, and I knew I could get closer, so I did, and worked into the group. Probably had 50 elk within 50 yards of me. I was right in the middle of them, and they wound up knowing something was wrong. I didn't realize there was a spike through the willows to my left, and he winded me and got them all on alert, and came out and kind of had the perfect setup on him, and hadn't seen him yet, so I was thinking, all right, if this thing pops out right where I think he is, it's going to be a 40-yard, just straight chip shot. And he popped out, and he looked like he had a mule deer rack on his head. So I gave him the pass, but I was pretty disappointed, because when he was barking at me, I was like, man, please be that big guy, and walk right into this spot. And he looked over at me, and I was like, I can't shoot that guy right now. So, same thing. It's like you get some good opportunities and some bad. And, part of it also, I saw King Kong in there. I saw probably the number 1 elk there, and that'll damage you for the rest of the hunt too, because once you see the big boy, it's hard to shoot one of his little brothers.
I guess I didn't realize that you had gone back out. What point was that, at the end of September?
Yeah, so that was literally the last 6 days of season I was out, and had some really good hunts. There were a couple of days that were pretty slow. There were 2 days that were just like absolute mayhem. One of the spots, I was fortunate, the guys that I'm hunting with have shared a spot with me that I definitely would never have found on my own. And you know, it's a spot that has there's definitely the opportunity to have like a life-changing hunt there. And I had 2 days there where it was just like Jurassic Park. You know, there's probably 10, 15 bulls all screaming at once, hundreds of cows just pew, 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 pew. You know, it's like the whole woods are alive. Like the aspens are shuddering from bulls screaming. And,
Awesome.
you know, whether you get a shot or not, like those are just situations that most of the people that I know have been hunting elk for 20 years have probably never seen that, you know. And
Yeah.
that's something I'd never give back, you know, whether I get a freezer full of meat out of it or not.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you'll
I'm
never
happy
forget
to have
that.
those. Yeah.
And that's super. So that's cool. Those guys are they've allowed you to go into their honey hole without them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And they, you know, they had different priorities this year. Nick was really geared towards whitetail. I think this year he's going to shift a little bit and he's going to be back into the elk. This was the first year he hasn't killed an elk, and I think he was going on 9 years in a row. He dropped an elk with the bow. So, you know, that was part of it. He had different priorities. He wound up going to Kansas to chase probably a Kansas state record whitetail that he didn't wind up crossing paths with, but, you know, it was just kind of the same thing. It depends on where you place your priorities. And like I said, you know, Nick Pinelli, he tagged out in the first weekend, so he didn't really have a reason to be out there. But the other cool thing is those guys are all, you know, they're in the camaraderie of it. And I know if I was to drop a bull on my own 6 miles out, those guys would hike their ass out and help me take it out. So
yeah, for anybody that's not familiar, the way that Rob got hooked up with these guys is just hilarious. And if you didn't hear the story, probably told it the first time we had you on last year, but on our first trip out there in 2017, you know, you had come up in, you were fishing with us and brought your bow, and we ran into a couple locals on the trail that were packing out a cow from the night before from way back up in the backcountry. And Rob and I befriended these guys. Rob offered them a dip and or something. I think it was a dip.
I stole
right?
a dip.
You stole a dip from them. That's right. I was like, yeah, I don't think that's what Rob was using at that point. And yeah, so we ended up sitting there with them for 20 minutes or so and shooting the shit. And you exchanged contact info with them because you were doing the photography, and you offered to, you know, come along with them and film some hunts and stuff. And next thing you know, the next fall you hunted quite a bit with them. And then
actually it took 2 years. It took 2 years of me pestering them.
Oh, so it was 2019 was the first year you went with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, persistence, you know, but
no, absolutely. And a lot of it for those guys too, you know, like I said, they've got spots that they've been hunting for almost 20 years. So, you know, I don't blame them at all. Here we were 2 guys from New York. You're out there
fudding it.
You know, yeah, you're out there with a boomstick, and these guys are hardcore bow hunters in their native lands, thinking like, "Fuck, I'm not letting this guy into my hunting hole."
Yeah. With my mustache and
yeah,
I think we were standing there with them, and didn't a bunch of deer or something come running down off the hill, and I freaking whipped my gun out and dropped down to my knee, and they're probably like, "Holy shit, what the hell's going on with this guy here?"
Yeah, and then you remember a bull bugled, and those guys they were beat to shit that year. Nick had a bum knee, and his back was all messed up. They had 100 pounds of meat on them, and a bull bugled, and they jumped up like they had fucking wiffle balls on their back. It's like, God damn.
Yeah, but those guys are legit. That's so cool to get hooked up with a couple locals that know what the hell they're doing, and the experiences you've had the last 2 hunting seasons with them have been awesome. So
yeah, and just learning experience too. You know, I've been really fortunate with that, with fly fishing, to meet some of the people that, you know, have more knowledge than I do and are willing to share it. And to get that in hunting is a huge thing, because it's, you know, it's such a different story out here. It's like I was pretty good at killing whitetail in New York, but you come out west and that doesn't mean a whole lot. You know, it's a new game. It's a new story. It's a totally different thing. So
yeah, it is.
It's been cool to learn from a couple of veterans.
Yeah. So what else did, trying to chronologically in your hunting season? So you did that with those guys early in season, right? And then you end
so
up.
That was September. I did I did another shoot with Cryptek and Slumberjack, which was with a guy Tucker Mers, who's a really fascinating dude too. Tucker's he's a hunting guide. He guides for elk and mule deer. He is a small business owner too. He's got a tree felling business, and then in the wintertime, he's kind of like a snowmobile daredevil. He's one of these guys that's going up to 14,000 feet and jumping snowmobiles like 400 feet, like just ridiculous stuff. So he's a crazy guy. I actually met him through his brother. His brother used to work out at Catalyst, where I was working for a few years, and Tucker guides Colorado and New Zealand. And so kind of hooked up with him. We had a lot in common. He's right around our age. I think Tucker's 30, 31 now. And like I said, just a all around bomber. He's a pretty fascinating dude to hunt with. So that one was really fortunate too. He's been guiding with an outfitting company called Samuelson Outfitters. And Samuelson, they've been doing the same thing for, I think, their third generation now. They've been hunting basically the same area in Colorado out towards Granby for 48 years now.
Wow.
And so that was really cool. They pack horses. They have over 40 horses in their fleet. And, they do everything from drop camps to full on camps. They'll pack out for you, so if you're out on your own hunt and you drop something and you want a pack horse, they can send one in. But their main camp was really cool. They've got, really nice canvas side setups. Their main camp has about 7 or 8 canvas side tents and big kitchen and stuff. And, it's pretty cool. Like they literally were out there hunting that area before the Forest Service existed. So basically the trails out there, they created, like every trail in this wilderness system they made. And it was really cool to learn from them. Sambo's the dad who's still around. He's getting up there. He's in the 60s, but he's still running around with the boom pole, and he hunts on his own. But they put together a ton of hunts for people in the fall, and it was really cool to see that also. Just such a different thing from what Nick and John and those guys are doing, because obviously they're a true outfitter. But it was really, really cool to kind of see their infrastructure and what they're doing, and a different part of Colorado, a different part of land. And, they wound up, we didn't wind up killing anything on that hunt, but they did guide into some good animals. And then because this was such a bad fire season, so anybody that didn't know, there was the worst season probably in history in Colorado for forest fires. And so there was the East Troublesome Gulch fire, which basically all the land that we hunted burned down. Tucker's house burned down. And so, it was a interesting.
Like burned down. Like looking at the pictures and stuff, and I follow him now on Instagram. I mean, that whole community was gone, like completely gone.
No, it was crazy. I mean, that was one, they say it's really, really rare that a fire is burning hot enough and it kind of gets the right direction to cross the CDT, which is Continental Divide Trail. But the East Troublesome fire crossed basically from Granby over to Rocky Mountain National Park over the CDT. And, kind of just a good testament to how strong that fire really was. But the amount of land that it burnt through was pretty incredible. And, we saw so much of that land that is beetle kill. And so the beetle kill pines, is a big problem. And there's so much down timber. And our hunts, we talked about it quite a bit and said, man, like when this place goes, it's going to go. And we didn't know it was going to be 2 weeks later, but it went. And so it was unfortunate. Happy for Tucker. Actually, he just broke ground on his new house that he's building. Basically, he has a good little stretch of land, so he's building just away from his other house. The only thing standing from his house was his fireplace. So they're leaving the fireplace. That'll be the new burn hole. That'll be where they host parties and stuff. But it was a crazy thing. It's something that I guess, especially from upstate New York, we don't really think of that. We don't necessarily ever get affected by forest fires, but out here you got a ton of down timber and winds and, dry land, and you double that with a fire, and it can turn out to be pretty substantial.
What's your feeling on all that out there? like with the gang you're running with, I'm sure it's something that gets talked about, the situation with the forest out there and that exact issue of all that tinder laying on the ground, all those dead trees standing. Like, what's your feeling on that? Because I hear about people pontificating about it that don't live there, but what's the vibe and discussion going on now?
Yeah, well, it's a tough thing. I don't know how much you can really do to control it. Definitely you can do controlled burns and stuff, but when you have that much land with that much down timber, I don't know anything about it, but I don't know how easy it is to do contained fires on that scale either. Sambo, the dad of the Samuelson Outfitters, he said that year, he said, "Man, I hope that we get a fire this spring when we can take it and we can handle it." And unfortunately, it came during hunting season when it had been dry, and that's a lot of why it was so substantial. But it's a tough thing because it has to happen, and it's part of life. It's part of the cycle. But at the same time, you hate to see people lose their houses and lose their lives. For how big the fire was, it was pretty low as far as the casualty count, but houses and buildings is crazy, the footprint that it has. So I guess I didn't really answer your question, but it's a tough thing. I don't really know. And actually, one of the days that we went out and hiked out into the area out with Nick and John and those guys, we were supposed to go out. Let's see, I believe it was a Thursday. We were supposed to go out that morning, and actually the access road that we were taking out to get to a trailhead was shut down because there was a fluke fire there. And so we literally, I drove out to his place and was on the way there. Traffic was really bad, go figure, but was on the way there, and they said, "Man, freaking this access road is burning down. We're not gonna be able to get in." And so I went out, and we finally got out there. We had a couple beers and got notification from one of his buddies who was working on the fire, and he said, it's all shut down. You guys can get through the road now. So we actually hiked in that night. I think we hiked in. We left the trailhead at like 11. We got to camp at like 2 a.m.
That's cool.
Which is cool. Stuff like that was fun, but made it pretty clear to me like how quickly your plans can be changed. You know what I mean? It's like it was 100% out of our control. There's nothing we could do, but
yeah,
you could put together a perfect hunt in your mind, and all of a sudden you can't even get to it because you got a fire burning. So
right.
It's kind of a crazy thing.
That is. Yeah, it's and it's interesting. We had this couple that moved in the next road up from where I am, and we get their mail every once in a while because we have the same address, just different street. And I went up there and I was shooting the breeze with them, and they lived up in like Evergreen area, kind of up there above Denver, and they moved back here. One of the big reasons for moving back here was because they have family here. They're an older couple, probably in their 50s or 60s. But they were saying it was just a ticking time bomb, and where their house was up there in the mountains, they're like, it's just a matter of time before we get a wildfire, and it's going to burn our house down. So we're like, we just wanted to get out. That was one of the motivating factors for them to move. And like, it's kind of inevitable, right? I mean, you said it's fire is a natural thing on the landscape, and we've done such a good job of preventing that over the last however many years. And then you get expansion of people moving and building in places that there never was any civilization. I mean, it's insane when you go up. Like I-70 is a freaking disaster now. I mean, I don't know if you follow that account on Instagram, I-70 things.
Yeah, I like that.
That is an awesome account. It's like, I would say it's probably one of my most favorite accounts right now because it's just hilarious, but it's just traffic jams and people doing wacky shit on I-70. But the ski towns have just exploded, and then you start, there's tons of articles and stuff out there about just how things are expanding and how it's affecting the animals, the environment, the woods. You're building houses in these places, and it's like, things are going to change. If you're going to move people into those areas, you're going to have effects in the environment, and you're taking a risk that your house is going to burn down. If you want to build a house on the freaking ocean, You might get a hurricane. It might freaking take your house down. You know,
Yeah,
it's
exactly. I mean,
inevitable.
it's just another scale of that. You know, like you said, like a hurricane. You got a house in Florida on the coast. There's a good chance. Like my parents lived down there for a while, and they said pretty much it was, you know, if you're living there for 10 years, you're going to get hit by at least one storm. And my parents, they had their house for 11 years. It had been hit before they bought it. They never got hit. The year they sold it, the people got hit the first year in the house. And
Jesus.
you know, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like it's almost, you know, it's like a ticking time bomb that's at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
It's due to happen. It's going to happen. It's a hard thing to plan for, but like you said, you know, you build your house in the middle of a bunch of fallen timber with freaking pine needles all over the ground. Like there's a
you
good
could
chance something's going to spark up eventually.
for sure. Yeah, I mean it's kind of amazing it doesn't happen more. You don't and it's I think that fire was caused by somebody doing something, right? It wasn't a matter of a natural lightning strike or something. Wasn't that
Uh,
or do they not
that
know yet?
That one I don't know. I think it was supposed to be natural, but I don't know. It was kind of a fishy year for that also because once that fire was burning, there were fires popping up all over Colorado, and some of them I don't believe were natural. You know, there's Boulder County had the biggest fire in the history of Boulder County, and it was like a nice ass neighborhood just outside of Boulder, and that went up in flames. And you know, that was like it wasn't anywhere near any of the other fires.
Hmm.
It was, you know, it seemed pretty random and kind of independent of the other fires to be a natural fire. And that's where it's tough. You know, I guess you have to hope that it's not arson, but at the same time, when like at one point I think there were 7 fires burning across Colorado, and that was like, you know, very well sprawled out. There was one down south. I forget what the name of that fire was, but there's one down south, and there were people hiking that day. They flew 23 people off the peak of this mountain because it started below tree line and worked all the way up.
Oh shit.
And that was in a matter of a day. And, you know, it was in a place where there is a good amount of human interaction, and it's hard to say. Like, it was a fair weather day, you know, like what you're going to say, it was a lightning strike. You know,
Right.
how does a natural fire occur in good weather when there's people out there during the day? Just, you know, it seems a little fishy to me to be a natural occurrence. So
Yeah.
you have to hope that it's not, but at the same time, like, I feel like humans are the biggest factor in all of this, and you know, people doing the wrong shit is a problem. And you know, it's really important in Colorado. It's like you got to douse your fires, make sure your fires are put out, and be very particular about your fire rings and stuff. And you know, at this point now, especially after this summer, I'd be surprised. I would say if you're going to be allowed to have a fire in the next 5 to 10 years in Colorado, because you know, they just saw so quickly like how hard it was. And then with those fires burning also, especially on a year with COVID, you know, they didn't want to send a mass party out there to try to take care of fires because they're dealing with all sorts of other shit on different fronts. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of that stuff, you get into some of those areas, how the hell do you control it? I mean, it's those mountains are no joke. It's not trying to control a brush fire out here behind my house. It's like, you know, you're on the side of, you can't get equipment to some of these places, you know, for people to get there. And
yeah, well, and the winds too. You know, you don't think about that a lot, but a lot of these times at these high mountain ranges, you know, it might be calm down in Denver. It could be 40, 50 mile per hour winds up on the mountain. So you get something burning with a 40 mile per hour wind, like it's gonna sweep through like absolute chaos. There's no control in that.
and it did. And it did.
It did
Yeah.
sweep through like wildfire.
Like wildfire. Uh, so we had your hunt there with Tucker, and then was it right after that? So you went and did your deal, and then you came back home shortly
Yep.
after that, right?
Went back out. Let's see. So I was supposed to go to Kansas. That deal kind of fell through for this year. So that was unfortunate, but at the same time, the stretch that I was going to be there from, he didn't wind up killing. So a couple good deer went down at that camp, but nothing he was looking for. So wasn't the end of the world there. So October was a little bit of a mixed blessing. That was when the fires were burning. So they actually, you know, a lot of hunting season was basically suspended. I think they did some sort of relief for guys, for you guys. Imagine if you had a rifle hunt planned in the middle of October and all of a sudden they told you, well, every unit in Colorado is shut down. So that was kind of a crazy thing. So I had another hunt I was supposed to go on that got rescheduled, hopefully for next year. But then let's see, November, I came back to New York. So, that's been one of my goals since I started, especially now working for myself, is to make it back for the rut every year. So Summer, my beautiful fiance, and I made it back. We drove back to New York. Even that, it was kind of a crazy time with COVID. So fortunately, we were coming to basically quarantine in a tree. So got back, and as fun as ever, I would say. It was a really cool season. It was an interesting season. So that was one thing I was excited to talk to you about, because I was keeping up with the podcast and hearing your guys' reports and stuff. And, for me, obviously as an outsider now, it's really cool to have a resource like you and be able to hear what's going on in the woods and hear what Pert Near's up to. And it was an interesting one, actually. When we got back, I think I got back. So we drove back on the 7th, drove straight through, basically 28 hours straight through. I was itching to get on a tree stand, so I was on the tree stand the next morning.
Some more.
Yeah, just sit in the car to go sit in a tree stand. But when we got back, it was kind of that warm stretch. So literally the first 2 days, it was like 70 degrees. It was crazy, and had some awesome hunts, man. I had a lot of fun. It was crazy. You guys, I had been listening. I know Jimmy had a bunch of luck grunting the bucks, and I had exactly the same experience. So, where I was hunting there, I'm closer to Ithaca, New York, just outside in a little town called Trumansburg. And I think in the first 3 days when it was warm weather, I grunted double-digit bucks in, and a lot of them were small, but man, they were as responsive as I've ever seen them. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So had a couple of really cool hunts. The first night I got a chip shot at a pretty nice 8-point. It was a local boy who I had on camera a fair amount, and definitely not top of the hit list, but a good buck. Some buck I probably would have taken a shot at the last couple of days, but that hunt was cool. He was chasing little bucks out, and I saw he had a doe bedded, and he had been pushing a couple of little bucks around and chased one right past me out of there. And so I got to look at just one of his sides. Had a pretty good idea who he was, so gave him a grunt, and man, he came beeline right to my tree. Came to about 12 yards right below me, and I was looking him in the face, got a really good look, and decided I probably wasn't going to take a shot right away, because I think that was that might have been my first night home, actually. And so he roughed up some bushes near me, went back into the thicket where his doe was. He was walking away. I grunted again, and sure as shit, he turned around, came right back to me, came into like 8 yards, looking around, went to a good tree, like rubbed it up basically until dark. So I stayed up for a little while and then went back in the thicket again. So just that one, it was pretty cool. It's not very often that you get a mature buck to turn back around after you already got an opportunity at him.
No.
So that was, pretty good indication that they were going to be pretty responsive. And then actually it was my third morning there. So I went and hunted with my buddy Darren Gardner. Darren and his dad Barth are kind of the guys that taught me everything I know about bow hunting. And so they have a really good stretch of land. I think Barth has over 300 acres now. And they pretty much just prime it for whitetail. That's all they're doing with it. So, they have a really nice stretch of land. They got some great stands. And I sat that morning. Darren had to take his little girl to school. So I went out and sat on one of the stands that was on a field edge. And basically, all the action I had seen had not been in the field at all. So my main stand that I've been hunting thus far is on the downside of doe bedding. It's always kind of a hot spot for bucks in the rut because there are so many does around, and I really hadn't seen very many deer at all in the field. So all of it had been in the center of the woods. So that morning I sat on the field and saw, I think, just a couple of little button bucks working around, but nothing out in the field. And Darren was coming in about 8 a.m. and he texted me and said he was coming in. And I said, man, I need to get in the woods. You know, I think I'm going to pick up and move stands. So I picked up and went walking through the woods, and it was it was an adventure just getting there. So I had it was probably half a mile I had to go to the stand. But at the time, you know, it had been 70 degrees for the past 4 days. So it was like walking on Lay's potato chips, you know, it was the loudest walk through a field, through a forest ever. So walking in, I kicked a deer up I saw straight out ahead of me. Keep walking, figured it didn't matter. Keep walking, and all of a sudden I hear coming to my left. Look to my left, and I got a little 8-point, and this thing was running full tilt, like definitely in chasing, you know, mouth open, going crazy, running full tilt straight at me. So I'm looking at this thing like I'm in the middle of a trail in the middle of the woods, but you know, he had no idea. So I'm watching this thing thinking like I'm about to get full backed right now. Like this thing's gonna kill me. Yeah, Terry Tated. So thankfully last second he took a step to the left, sprinted by me, literally not even 5 yards in front of me, didn't know I was there, kept running. So I'm like, okay, you know, these bucks are definitely in zombie mode. So I keep walking, go to where I hadn't been to that stand in a few years. It was one of their kind of go-to stands, but I hadn't been there in a while. So got to where I knew I was close to the stand. So I stopped and was looking around, and I hear a burr. And I looked to my left, and there were 3 different bucks standing within about 40 yards of me. The stand is about 40 yards to my right over here. So I look, and most of the 2 of the bucks were smaller. One of them looked all right. Nothing super special. They finally kind of like milled around and went into this thicket. That's like a big bedding area. So I thought, man, I got to get on this stand. So quickly, I kind of scurried over the stand, ran up real quick, got set up. About 2 minutes after getting set up, 6-point came right underneath me, came right behind me. Another one comes running around me. And then I look over and like didn't even notice at first, but I heard and I looked to my left, and there's a pretty nice 10-point standing. He was about 45 yards at the time. So he popped out and was standing there, and he was far enough that I probably had a shot, but he's far enough I wasn't going to take it right away. And, you know, I didn't have great eyes on him yet just because he had just popped up. So I figured, well, everything's been coming to a grunt. Let me see if I can grunt him. So I was keeping my grunt tube right here on my chest on my bino harness. And so I just went down to one and went burnt. And right away, man, he picked his head up and went back and came walking straight to me, come straight to my tree, right underneath me. He was like, I think when I finally ranged it afterwards, it said 8 yards, but basically he was right under me. You know, it was like probably really 5 yards from my tree. And stood there for a minute, realized after about 30 seconds it was a 10-point. You know, he wasn't huge. He was a younger buck, but definitely a mature buck and pretty racked. And he turned his head one last time, and I saw that 10th point, and you know, pretty long tines for how old he was. And I decided, man, I can't pass up this chip shot. So put it behind his shoulder and rocked him, and he ran about 50 yards and pounded ground. And you know, that was that. So it was cool. And one of the coolest things too, I told you Darren came out that morning. So he came out, and actually the last successful hunt that we had together, every year we try to get out a few times, and the last successful hunt we had together, Darren shot a buck. And when we walked up on my buck, we got there, and Darren right away said, "Holy shit, man, that's my buck." And it was literally like a spitting image of the buck he had killed 5 years before. So, you know, we're thinking it was probably the grandson of the buck that he killed, but definitely like, you know, pretty much identical, about as close as you're going to get. So, you know, it's cool to see. It was definitely some local genes floating around. And he was a buck that they actually didn't have on camera. They knew he was around. Darren's dad, Barth, had seen him a couple of days earlier and didn't get a shot at him. But I said right away to Barth, you know, I said, "Sorry, man, I killed your little baby deer." And Barth's a big buck hunter, and when we got him in, he said, "Man, I would have killed that deer too. I would have slapped you if you didn't shoot him." So,
yeah, with a name like Barth, you have to shoot big bucks, you know.
That's it, man. So
yeah,
so that was cool. And that was
cool. And that was, what was that, like the 9th, 10th ish you shot
I
him?
think it was the 9th. Yeah, the morning of the 9th I shot him. And so like I said, I mean that day it got to be 75 degrees. I think when we dragged that deer out, it was 75. And I couldn't believe, that was more that day I saw it. I think I'd seen eight, 9 different bucks,
Yeah.
and they were all ripping, going crazy.
You must have
And
had a
so we
couple
had
hot
to,
does in there or something. I mean, for them to be
definitely.
that mobile and that vocal in that heat.
Yeah, it just got to the point, like, I was thinking that it was going to heat up like crazy after that because we had a cold snap coming. So, my original thought was, okay, toot these few days out and see what happens in the warm weather, but then it's going to be on after that. And killed that buck that morning, and I hunted every day after that. Barth actually took 2 weeks straight off. He was doing all day sits, and for whatever reason, the cold snap came that next day. It went from like 75 to mid 40s, and we're doing all day sits and not seeing deer.
Yeah.
And just crazy. I guess it just goes to show you how sporadic they can be, and a lot of it's probably based on those hot does and when they're coming in.
Yeah, and that's like how hit and miss it is. You can be off by hours, you can be off by a day. Like that was a weekday when you shot that buck, and most regular Joes are not taking time off and they're hunting Saturday, Sunday. It's like shit could have been going down the day before on a Friday.
Well, and if you looked at the specs, if you looked at it, it was like, it's going to be 75 degrees. Like there's going to be shit going on in the woods. And that was like absolute mayhem, So it was just crazy to see. It makes me think like how many of those days was I looking at the weather forecast and thinking there's no way anything's going to happen these days. And who knows, it could have been a ripper just like those were, like just bucks going nuts. It's all dependent on their schedule.
Yeah, they don't. At the end of the day, they don't care. Is it ideal? No. And is it happening everywhere in every thicket and every block of woods? No. But if you're in the right spot and you have a hot doe, like it can be a freaking hunt of a lifetime. So you just hope to God it times up that way. But I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan. That's like one of my big takeaways from this hunting season was I did not hunt. I only had 20, I think it was 25 or 26 sits total, so I had a couple, I think I had 4 or 5 all day hunts where I went out and I hunted all day.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, that's including 3 days in Pennsylvania. So I had 2 days here in New York where I hunted all day.
Sure.
And that was the day I shot my buck with my bow. And it was the day that it was opening day of gun where I shot my buck and doe. So it's like, I think I've taken away from this past year with having a lot less time that if I can pick, whether it be a couple long weekends or just take 5 days off and just hunt a week during the time that I know is good, which the areas I hunt, I seem to have just to see bucks and just deer movement in general, not talking about trying to find that big mature buck. Like I have the best action and opportunity every year, the last few days of October and going into November. So like if I have to pick, I got to look at the calendar, but that's my game plan this year is I was talking to Mr. Jim DiAugustino this morning, and that's my game plan. Like I'm probably gonna look at a week, whatever those dates fall, take those 5 days off, and that might be the majority of my effort come archery season. Cause
sure. Yeah. I mean, now with my situation, that's pretty much what I'm limited to, but I think if you time it right, it doesn't necessarily matter. I've had years where I put in probably a good 30 days on the stand and still only killed 2 or 3 of them. And, if you can pick the right times and pick the right spots, I know the one podcast you were talking about the spot where you took Connor this year. And you said you've just had consistent success there on pretty much the same time of year. And for whatever reason, the deer are there and, they're behaving how they should behave. And
I'd have to do the math. I hunted that spot. I hunted it, shot a buck. That was the first time in there. The second time in there, I shot a buck and a doe. And then I went in there one more time the last day of gun season, and Jeff Jones shot 3 deer. He shot a doe and 2 bucks.
Oh, that was that spot too.
A buck and 2 does. So that's 6 deer in 5 visits, and in 3 visits.
Yeah, that's
You know,
pretty
and
incredible.
that's not going to happen every time, but I would say my reflection is that I spent a ton of time in the off season in there, and I've really become very confident to how the deer move. And then I just go in there on the days that I have confidence based off of other hunters' pressure, and that's where I'm having a ton of fun hunting some of these public places because I'm hunting based around other hunters. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to go here on opening day because I know where other people are going to be, and I'm going to go where they don't want to be, and I'm going to shoot something.
Yeah, and
So,
chances are they help push stuff there too.
oh, I guarantee it. Probably both the deer I shot on opening day were probably encouraged my way, or they sensed the pressure, and I was at the evacuation point. I'm very confident of that.
Yeah, I
So
love your story when you were farting with your tether and halfway up the tree, and that one cracked me up.
it was
That was fun.
twice in the same sit.
Yeah,
And that was a good buck too. I don't know that anything would have actually come together on that had I had stayed in the stand for another 5 minutes, or if the wind didn't switch, who knows if it would have ever come together. But I mean, was freaking in it to win it. And I'm so pissed. I had a camera card right up in where that buck came from, and where the buck I shot, where I did shoot that night, came from. I went in there, would have been the Friday before opening day of gun season, and I moved some cameras around, and I found a huge rub, and right where the bucks were coming out of that day during archery when I shot mine, and I put a camera right on that kind of travel corridor right through there where that big rub was. And the last day of season, we were up in there hunting, and Adam found my camera when he was walking the edge of the brush, and my card was gone, and I'm freaking, thanks
yeah,
whoever the jackwagon is that took my card. Thanks for not taking my camera, but I just would have loved to have known what was walking around in there. And obviously it was something good, because if somebody stole my card, they obviously know that there's something going on there too. So
yeah.
little did they know I had a camera up there about 200 yards away from that, and I have a bunch of good stuff on there. So they didn't find that one. But.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I really enjoy watching what you guys are doing with trail cameras and stuff, because obviously being halfway across the country, I can't necessarily do that much anymore. And I'm fortunate. My old man runs 1 or 2 cameras for me at the house still, so usually I have a decent inventory on the bucks around. But it's really cool to see what you guys are doing, and to see your success with food plots, and mapping out where your deer are and where you're at. And I think you especially have made big strides in the past few years, just as far as getting educated and formulating the plan. And clearly it's paying off.
Yeah,
because you guys are getting better and better at it.
Oh, I appreciate you acknowledging that, because I'm spending a lot of time trying to educate myself and try to become a better hunter and more efficient hunter. And, I measure that by how full my freezer is at the end of the year. And I've had 4 or 5 years in a row now where I am stocked, and I can supply the people around me as well if they need it. So it's cool.
That's what it's all about.
I can tell you one thing, Herm, trail cameras are great, but they're also the biggest stressor. Because we've got a pile of cameras still out right now, and you're just constantly, especially when you're dealing with cell cams, it's like, oh, the batteries are low on this one, or this one's not taking pictures and it should be. And it's interesting, but the food plot stuff's cool too, because I'm really falling in love with the habitat side of it, that discussion right now, because we've gone very, very hard one way at the farm, and now we're veering back the other way, because we're starting to realize that we've lost a lot of cover and bedding area over the last 10 years, just from the natural development of the woods. And in turn, with the woods developing, we've created bigger food plots, and farmers have taken out hedgerows. There's like a lot less habitat now. So we're in the stage where we're getting the chainsaws out. We're doing some thinning of the woods, and that's a whole new, I grew up with my dad and my Uncle Mike managing our property, and they continue to manage our property, but it hasn't been something that like I actively can participate in. Not that I can't, but number one, I live an hour and a half from there. And
Mm.
number two, it's my land, but it's not my land. And Dad and Uncle Mike have their ideas of what they want to do. But now in this situation here, it's like, you know, Dallas and Brian and I, it's really the three of us, you know, it's their father and my father-in-law's property, but you know, they're allowing me to be part of that process with them. And it's super
Sure.
rewarding to like go out there and look at the woods and know what you want to try to achieve and be working with somebody or a group of people to try to get that achieved. I'm getting a ton of enjoyment out of it because you can actually, you know, we're dropping trees right now and we've had solid snow for a month. We're going on a month and a half now. And it's like super rewarding to see the deer are flocking to our property.
Cool.
And we're dropping trees and you go in there a couple days later and there's just all the ends of the trees are nipped off and the deer are feeding on them and they're bedding right in the tops. And it's just cool to see that process coming together, you know, that you're actually making an impact on the property and the deer herd and everything else. So it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I mean, you're doing yourself favors along with them. You know, it's like grooming that. That's one thing. I'm really fortunate to have Darren and Barth allow me out on their land because, you know, Barth's been grooming this land for 20 plus years, probably 30 plus years actually at this point. And, you know, it's something that even him with that amount of experience, you know, it's still, you might make some changes one year thinking it's going to be the end all be all. And man, this is going to change it. This is going to bring him in. And maybe it's not that, you know, and it's a lot of it is kind of the form a hypothesis and, you know, put together the experiment and see how it works out. But it is really cool when you start to see that. And, you know, with my house, my parents' land, you know, kind of the same thing. Like I said, it's been a doe bedding area for forever. And it's getting encroached upon more and more just by the normal reaction of people moving in. And, you know, there's actually a trail that goes across our driveway now, which has gotten to be like a pretty heavily traveled trail. And it's funny because that trail, you know, I'll be hunting and seeing people walking and running with strollers and in all sorts of crap. And the deer are still like, you know, they're still making it work. They're still in there. It's still the honey hole because they know that they're protected when they're in there. But it's an interesting thing to see how they are affected by little changes here and there. And, you know, I've made some small changes, but one thing that I've learned is like our woods, the longer I can leave them alone and then get into them at the right time, that's really what makes a difference. But it's cool to see kind of the trickle effect of making a small change and see where it takes you.
No doubt. Yeah, it's fun to be part of that process. I mean, I don't know. I think it's becoming an old man thing. You know, you get older and you're like, oh, I think I want to come over here and work on this, you know. It's interesting, but
as long as you're outside, man. Well, it's good for you too. It's good to see you getting the little guy out there. And, you know, it's like the generations. That's one thing that I really appreciate now is, you know, my dad wasn't a hunter, but I was fortunate to have some friends to get me into it. But I think it's more and more important these days to get the next generation into it. And, you know, you guys are doing it on all levels and, you know, kind of hitting every aspect of it, and to be able to get your kids into it and share it with your brothers and uncles and dad and, you know, everybody involved is just a super cool thing.
Yeah, it's a family affair. I'm pretty fired up. I'm hoping by the next weekend I'll be picking up I bought a side-by-side and
Nice.
It's got a heater and a cab and
Heater.
Bill Dan, him and I are just going to be out there. I'll just fill that thing full of snacks and just strap him in so he can't go anywhere.
Super cool.
Let him nap. Yesterday I took him for a ride on the snowmobile and we were going to just go for a ride. And then he fell asleep like 3 minutes into the ride and he slept for an hour and a half. And I had to stop and take a leak a couple times because I had drank a whole pile of water before we went for a ride. It's expecting we weren't going to, you know, be driving around in a circle for an hour and a half. And he'd wake up and he's sitting in front of me and he'd get all pissed off and he'd slump forward and hit his head on the steering wheel. And he's like all mad at me.
Just put him in the Kafara bag.
I should put him in the bag. Yeah. Actually, I should put my big reckoning. That's a great idea. Yeah. Put my reckoning bag on my frame and then just stuff them in the reckoning and wrap them up in blankets.
Yeah, probably warm in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be nice.
Yeah,
You
just
get off, he's with you.
call him a sack of potatoes and throw him in there, and he'd be
Yeah,
happy as a clam.
you won't even know.
No, but yeah, I appreciate you identifying that because that's we're not putting on a show either. I mean, that's who we are. That's what we're all about. And it's I put my stuff out there and what I'm doing with the kids, but I mean, we all live it. I mean, it's the same thing with Brian and Dallas, and I'm sure Jimmy will be the same way once his kid is he's only 5 months now, but it's what we do, and it's really fun to share that and to show people that you can not let that stuff slow you down too much. You can still get out there and go fishing, and it's hard to hunt with a little guy when they're 2 years old, obviously, but you
Yeah.
can figure out ways to get your kids involved early so that they understand that lifestyle and want to be part of it. So
Yep. Yeah, I still want to do a photo project. If we got any good companies listening right now, we've got a Generations photo project with Pert Near Outdoors.
that's right, generations. We're a net loss organization, so if anybody wants to support us to at least break even, that would be fantastic. I was just working my tax return the other day. Hey, look too good over here, Herman. Yeah. I'm not telling the wife about those losses. I'll just tell her that just broke even. Yep.
Yep. Perfect even.
No, and at the end of the day, it's not. I would love to do a project with you, I know, and that kind of dovetails into kind of wrapping her up here. Is that I was just kind of curious what you have on the docket at this point for 2021. Do you got any stuff scheduled for the fall already, or what do you got going?
Kind of working on that. So not any big ones right now. I've been talking to Cryptech Camo is a company who I did a little project with this year, and trying to get something more secured on the books, more of a monthly thing with them, but some projects for the fall. But really, kind of looking a lot of it with my business now is trying to kind of mold it around what I would like to do anyways. And obviously that's a big flex at times, and that's a goal that will probably be continuous until I get really established. But nothing super specific aside from the fact that I'll probably try to get as much elk hunting in as I can this year. I would certainly like to drop my first one, but if I'm out documenting other people, that's, I'd say, almost equally as good. So nothing full on the books yet, but I know this year Nick is trying to get his dad onto an elk. So he's going to have him come out this year. So I plan to follow them around a little bit. He actually just purchased a pretty primo piece of whitetail country in Kansas also. So
Nice.
I'm going to help them kind of with that project. And, there's some work to be done on the farm and stuff. So do a little bit of that, but then I plan to get back in November and do some whitetail again. So I guess to answer your question, nothing super specific on the books yet, but kind of the same old things, and continue to go after that little mix of Western hunting and Eastern hunting. And I've been getting into ducks quite a bit, and I might get out with Mike Hearn for a spring turkey hunt.
Oh,
That'd be fun.
you guys could draw some inappropriate pictures in the dirt or what?
I hear that's his specialty.
I heard. Yeah. I've seen his work. He's quite talented, that young fella.
He is.
He's a pert near pro staffer, Mike Hearn. He's probably our biggest name person, and nobody even knows about it.
I like it.
Big deal. He's got a hat and everything.
Oof.
Yep. I don't know if you saw, he had the pert near hat on in his picture with his buck from this year.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't gotten to the hat level yet, but maybe I'll upgrade.
Actually, you knows what? I've got a few hats here that I'm really struggling to sell. Nobody likes them. I was warned that nobody would like the design. So I'm, if you would like to be an honorary pro staffer, I'll be happy to send you one. God knows you've done enough for me and the family anyway. Yeah, I'd like to. I have no clue what the hell this season's going to bring. I have a whole pile of things I'd love to do, but whether they happen, I have no idea. But it'd be interesting to try to hook up with you and do something. I would really like to do that. Whether it be later on in deer season, later towards the end of November, December, or I'm even we've been flirting ideas around about something after the first of the year out of state. So that might fit into people's schedules pretty well. That's something that I'm actively looking at, so we can we can
Nice.
talk further about that off air and what the rest of the year looks like. But
Well, yeah, keep me up for plans. Yeah, it's definitely, it's kind of a tough time to plan anything, even being a year into this shit. But
yeah,
who knows what it'll be. But if I'm bombing around with you guys in it at any point, I'll be super happy about it. I know that.
We need a pert near feature film called Feeding Them, the next
Feeding 'em.
generation. Oh man, that sounds good.
Well, there it was, just name dropped and everything.
Yeah, I gotta copyright that shit. Somebody's gonna steal it because it's just too good.
Yeah.
But still, nobody understands it, which is great. It can be whatever you want it to be. Don't overthink it, people. You hear us saying feeding them. It's what is feeding them? I don't know. What is it? It's whatever you're doing. Are you feeding the geese? Are you drinking a beer? What are you doing?
Whatever it is to you, that's how I feel.
Right. Are you in your basement? Maybe you're feeding a certain way. What are you doing? I don't know. So speaking of feeding, I should probably get heading and wrap her up. I gotta finish up some work and get ready for the chaos to come home, being
Cool.
Bill, Dan, and Miss Kate. So
cool. Well, thanks for the chat, Bill. It was fun as always.
Give yourself a quick plug for your work. And
Oh yeah, so once again, my name is Rob Herrmann. You can check me out on Instagram, mainly active on Instagram. My name is R Herrmann Photog. Herrmann is Herrmann. Do a little bit with Yakota Supply, who I mentioned earlier, and Bearded Bros Media. So little mix of stuff, but check me out. I try to keep it fresh with a mix of outdoor fishing, hunting, craziness, whatever I get into. So tune in if you'd like, and obviously follow around with the Pert Near Outdoor staff. They're the best in the business.
Oh, I didn't pay you to say that. I'll send you a hat though. Not net loss. Hashtag net loss. It's great talking to you, buddy. Tell Summer and the fam we said hello.
Will do. Same goes to you.
See you, pal. Take it easy.
Yeah.